One.
Hello, everybody. Very excited to have Steve Davis with us as a guest today. Jeff Johnson and I have some very exciting data to cover for the last month and for our August real estate market update. Steve, tell us a little bit about how things are going for you and the team over at Total Wealth.
Well, as you know from last night's event, there are a lot of good deals out there. It is a bit of a buyer's market, so we're having the opportunity to find more deals than we have really in the last 2 or 3 years. I think there were 20 deals that got sold or at least committed to last night alone. That doesn't include, the other 30 days of the month.
For sure.
So I think there's a tremendous opportunity in the marketplace right now.
Yeah, Steve. So, for those of you that don't know, we host a deal night with Total Wealth Academy. Very successful, a lot of attendees. We also have the opportunity to attend online. So, if you would like to attend online or be there in person, as long as you're a Total Wealth Academy member, you can offer on those properties. But even if you aren't a member, you can attend once as a guest to see how the process works, the properties that are offered, and et cetera. So I think it's an outstanding event. The other thing I want to mention is that you guys have really expanded your team of agents that are helping people find deals, not only on deal night, but throughout the month. Tell us more about that.
Well, we waited about 3 years to do it, and then we started a realty company to help our members find deals. And we've got about 12 agents that's all they do every day, all day long, is look for distressed property and bring it to the members. And it's working okay so far, but I think there's a tremendous potential for these 12 agents to start bringing, 2 or 3 deals each, 30 deals a month. I think is the goal we're looking at.
Yeah, that's great. And I know a lot of the agents are new to Total Wealth Academy, so you guys are just getting your feet under you. But I hear nothing but a lot of great positive feedback on the deals that are being presented and the momentum that your team is building. So I think it's a exciting time to join Total Wealth because you've always been fantastic mentors, teaching people not only about real estate investing, but in other categories of their life. You hear tons of great feedback from our borrowers that work with Total Wealth. And now you're kind of putting that on steroids by bringing in consistent deal flow. So I think if you are not currently a Total Wealth Academy member, you should definitely reach out to Steve and his team to talk more about it.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest. I don't know. I mean, the folks that have been here for a while, I'm sure know about Steve and Total Wealth. But for the ones that haven't been, do you mind giving a quick little summary, Steve, of what Total Wealth is and kind of what you teach and how people can benefit from signing up with your program?
Sure. Total Wealth Academy teaches people how to use real estate primarily to build a second stream of income. The concept of saving your way to retirement just doesn't work. When you look at 95% of Americans fail to retire by age 65. When you look at the 5% who do retire successfully, they've all got multiple streams of income, and that's what we're doing at Total Wealth Academy. And our members are investing in single family homes, but they're also investing in big commercial deals, big apartment complexes, self-storage complexes, senior living, strip shopping centers. And we teach people how to do that so they have a second stream of income that meets and exceeds their bills so that they can retire at any age. And of
Yeah.
course, we also have classes on fitness, uh, relationships, everything that goes into a balanced life, because so many places out there are just money, 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 and they think that money's going to solve all their problems. Money just creates its own problems. So you still have problems. And so we teach people how to lead more balanced lives as well as building a second stream of income.
Yeah, that's one of the unique things about it, I think. And I think you even had a name change because of that. At one point, it was more maybe real Wealth Academy or something like that, real estate
Yeah.
related. Now you're kind of making it total. It's like a holistic approach to helping people be financially successful, but also have outstanding relationships and quality of life. So that's what I hear from people. They really, really enjoy about it.
Excellent. That's good to hear.
Yep. So let's go to the next slide here. A quick disclaimer for everybody. We are just providing general information. This is the opinions of Jeff, myself, and Steve, but we are not giving you direct investment advice. You need to pursue another way in which to get direct investment advice. But we do want to give you our insights into the national real estate market and especially the Texas real estate market. Few quick things on Catalyst. We are a one-stop shop for hard money and permanent financing loans. So that means if you want to do a buy and hold investor, Steve talks about building wealth and a consistent cash flow. That means in most instances, having ongoing income. And in the single family space, that means being a landlord, correct? So you will, often buy these properties at a distress. The deals we're talking about at Deal Night, the distressed properties that need repairs. We provide the money to purchase and repair those properties. Then we also provide permanent financing loans in the area of either conventional loans or debt service coverage ratio loans. Those loans mean that you can qualify for these properties even if you don't have consistent W-2 type income that's easily documentable. That means you qualify to buy these properties based on their ability to cover the mortgage through rent. So very exciting products no matter where you are. If you're new and a full-time flipper, you can qualify for these. If you're retired and no longer have that consistent W-2 income, it's also great for people like you. And we are very excited about our ability to refinance these loans very quickly with that one-stop shop model. You have one loan officer, one credit pool. And the great thing right now is that we are able to get you pre-qualified with no risk to your FICO score whatsoever by using a soft credit pool. So if you want to find out the products you qualify for as a real estate investor, we can do all of that, all these different products with one soft credit pool, which is great. So you being in Houston, Steve, and definitely an expert in the market, what do you see in these trends that we're showing on the screen right now?
Is that, um, when you look at the $4 million, that's the, wait a minute, 4 billion?
That's a B. Yes, sir.
Big boy
$4
number.
billion.
Yeah.
Wow. Compared to 3.73 from 24, that's a pretty hefty leap. That's interesting. I thought sales were kind of stagnating from some of the stuff I had seen, but this is obviously not what's happening. Um, the average sale price dropped a little bit, but that's such a small amount that I don't think that's a big deal. Median sales price dropped. That is substantial, $11,000. Monthly inventory dropped. No, it expanded to 5.5. Pending sales, 8,693. Wow. That is really interesting because, like I said, I had heard that things were slowing down from the sales side, but this says no, prices have dropped. Sales have gone up. The number of sales have gone up. And we went from 6,500 last year in pending sales to 8,600. That's substantial. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. I see this. And the two things that jumped out at me were, and I get it, it's 6 years ago. But if you look at the number of listings, right? They have this July 61,000 listings. 6 years ago, there were 30,000 listings. So literally twice as many opportunities to buy a property than there were 6 years ago. That is a huge jump. I know like Texas and Houston in particular has had a nice population increase. So I'm assuming you're going to see a little more of that. But when I see that 6 years ago, 9 out of every 30 properties was being bought, and now 10 out of every 60 properties is being bought, it tells me that there's probably going to be a lot of sellers that are willing to negotiate, that are willing to take lower offers. So if I am somebody looking for a good deal, I'm aggressively making offers because you do not know which sellers are in a situation where they're kind of at the end of the rope and they need to make a deal.
Yeah, I have to agree with your point. I think there's going to be more and more with this many active listings. It's really going to turn more into a buyer's market.
I apologize, guys. I had someone beating my door down with relentless effort, so I had to go and see what it was. But I'm back. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Nonstop. It's one of the things about working from home nowadays. Can be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So Houston, like I'm sure you guys have been covering it. It's definitely a relatively flat market. I think this really kind of moves from month to month. I think last month it was slightly up. Month before that, it was pretty much flat. But the
Yeah.
volume, to your point, is like really impressive at the moment. There are a lot of homes being sold. It's just moving a little bit slower than the past, right?
It's taken a while. It's taken a while, but again, like I don't know if you heard me, I stepped away. Like the fact that there are 2x number of listings in a 6-year period, that is a lot of properties that somebody could buy.
Yeah, and really, this is what buy and hold investors want. You want a buyer's market. This is the time whenever you can make money. Believe me, all the people that I know that made the most of real estate investing in the past, this was whenever they invested after the great financial crisis. That was a very good time in which to do it. And it was definitely a buyer's market. Homes are not flying off the shelves. I mean, it was definitely greater than 6 months, a lot of days on market, but it was an outstanding time to buy. So buyer's market, you get more leverage. The wholesalers out there that are bringing the off market deals do the same. So definitely a good time. All right. Do we want to go to the next slide? All right.
I will say just real quick before we talk about Dallas, I was looking at Houston. Houston, even though it's up, it has the lowest days on market in the state. Like 50 days on market is the best. So they're taking a little bit less time than the rest. But
All right. So, Steve, your second location is up in Dallas. So I know you guys know this area well. What are you seeing in Dallas?
Well, I'm looking at these statistics, and then I've got the anecdotal. I see deals being done by the members up there fairly consistently. But look, this is again, you've got a 26, is that right? Year over year, 27% increase in total active listings. That's substantial. That's a big deal. All the other numbers, 5%, 5%, 7%. Um, Average sale price stayed about the same, and median sales price stayed about the same. Dallas is pretty consistent, but there are, like we noticed in Houston, a lot more active listings. Dallas is going to turn into a little more of a buyer's market as well. So the opportunities are there. The members are buying them. I haven't heard any complaints about I can't find deals or anything like that in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And I can see why with that many listings.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you. Like Dallas is it's unique because it doesn't have as many sales. Like Houston was way up on the sales for July versus the two previous periods, pre-COVID and last year. And Dallas is just a little bit different. It's basically flat with last year and down from July of 2019. Uh, so it's got a little bit longer months of inventory than it did in the past, but it's well below the Houston's 5.5. So I think this is still a very stable market overall. And one thing that is very interesting, converse, or not the same as Houston, where the rents are just slightly up. The average lease price is up 5% year over year, just up a stunning amount from July of 2019. That's probably the number that jumps out to me the most as a landlord. You look
Yeah,
at that, 1,800 to 2,700, almost up. I mean, approaching up 1,000 since COVID, which is pretty amazing.
yeah,
average.
when you hear folks backing out of a deal because I don't know they think maybe the rent is off by $50, right? If you think about it in the long run, you look at numbers like this where you're 6 years deep and you've been able to increase your rents almost $1,000. It's at the time you think, $50, I want that better deal. But like if you look at it over a long timeline, you should be kicking yourself for passing on deals when you see numbers like this, where over a 6 year period you could have raised your rents almost $1,000.
Yeah, it's an impressive increase there in Dallas. Houston was up 27% on the lease price. And, Houston still has more attractive price points. The entry price for a home is significantly lower. But that average lease price there in Dallas is really shocking, up 47%, Houston up 27%. That's a massive difference.
Huge.
Now, what we do see up in Dallas, just before we move on, it's a little bit tougher to buy in the major areas because the home price is so high. So it's tough to get the cash flow. But people are really pushing further and further out. There's so many excellent suburbs in there, and you have so many different job centers, right? It's not just downtown Dallas. You got Fort Worth, you got Arlington, you've got that Plano Frisco area, lots of really good jobs. And that creates a lot more areas where you can drive a reasonable commute and still have an excellent paying job. And I think that's why we see these rents continue to go up, fantastic paying jobs, and then just more and more areas farther out where you can still, like, there's no way in heck from North Dallas you could get down to, as an example, Fort Worth or Arlington in a reasonable time frame, but you can certainly get to Frisco or Plano and have a fantastic job and be almost all the way to the Oklahoma border or into Oklahoma and still have a reasonable commute there. So that's really what we're seeing. Is that the same thing you guys are seeing, Steve?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to agree with you.
Yeah. All right. So this next place has not been necessarily the top performer, maybe the last year or so that we've been doing this, but the success story in San Antonio for this month is really pretty incredible. Still have more days on market, right? 6.174. That's a long time for days on market, but for the first time in a while, and definitely the strongest of all the major metros in Texas, up 7% on average sales price and up 3% on median. That's a real success story, right?
For sure. I mean, like you said, I look at the other cities, and it seems, I don't know if it's true or not, but it seems like we always lately we've been talking about how San Antonio struggled a little bit, the market was down, and while days on market is high relative to the other three, if you just look at comparatively, you look at the average sales price since COVID, they're at 45%. Houston, who nobody's really complaining about, says it's bad, it's a good market, they're up 39%. So in that 6 year span, real estate prices have gone up in San Antonio at a greater clip than Houston.
It is interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, it's resilient, and I know we talk about it a lot at the end of the presentation about the affordability index and how seemingly for whatever reason the prices in San Antonio relative to say Houston are just depressed, and can't figure out why, because it's a great city, and maybe this is starting to kind of correct a little bit.
Yeah. And we don't have any of these articles in our presentation this month, but I'd say in the 8 months of 2025, probably 4 months, there were articles from national writers and experts in the real estate space that came out and said, based on a wide variety of factors, job market, affordability, wide variety of things, that San Antonio was one of the best, if not the best, real estate market for future appreciation. So we're starting to see that come to fruition now.
Yeah, it's a wonderful town. It's got great tourism. People who live there swear by it.
Yeah,
I think those guys are right. This place is going to boom in the near future.
for sure. And a lot of these tech manufacturing jobs, things that are moving into Texas that want to be close enough for that, that tech, I guess, access to the mines of Austin, right? The tech mines, but they also want to have manufacturing and things of that sort. And a lot of that is closer to San Antonio. A lot of the manufacturing. So those are fantastic blue collar type jobs that can really be outstanding tenants. That's the model tenant for most people in the space is that blue collar tenant that may not have quite as much job security or maybe real high level income, but more than enough to consistently pay their rent and be very reliable as a tenant.
I'm looking at this, tell me if you disagree. If I'm a flipper in San Antonio, I think it's a great opportunity because if you look at just you got to buy them right. But if you look at say July 2019, you had 3,400 sales versus 10,000 listings. Fast forward now, you have less sales with a significant 70% more listings. So there's opportunities to get deals cheap, in my opinion, because there's so many more active listings relative to sales. But then, okay, you got to turn around and sell it. The prices aren't dropping, so people are still paying the high quality prices. They aren't going down. The only thing you need to do is account for maybe a little bit longer hold time, right? Just bake in a little bit more of your holding costs. It's going to take you a little longer to sell these properties, fair. So add a month or so to your holding costs when you're doing your numbers. But I think you can buy some deals deep in San Antonio right now, I guess.
I agree with that. All right, let's check out Austin. Steve and Total Wealth Academy definitely preach the buy and hold model, but they also teach flips. We lend on flips, but we do a lot more lending on buy and hold. We have some real sauce there. But Austin is a really good flip market. It can be tough to you have to go real far out to find cash flow in single families, but there are tons of duplexes and quadplexes and things of that sort there that do present very good opportunities. And for those of you that do not know, that is right in our wheelhouse. We are excellent single family 1 to 4 hard money and long-term lending buyers. I'm sorry, lenders. So if you're in that space, that could be great there in Austin. Austin and San Antonio, they're very close geographically, and often their trends are similar. They definitely feed off of each other. And you see, these are the 2 longest days on market here. And their home sales are down over the last 2 periods. San Antonio is the same story. Although it doesn't have the appreciation that San Antonio does have at the moment. Looks like San Antonio is bouncing back a little bit better. But overall, they're somewhat tied. But you can find good buy and hold deals there if you're willing to look a little farther out, or especially in that duplex, quadplex, triplex space. Anything else jumping out at you guys here for Austin?
Not to me.
You may have said it, but the active listings, going up 18%, 108 since COVID. That's substantial. Again, more indication we're moving towards a buyer's market.
Yeah. That months of inventory being at 6.1 is another indicator too, right? I think that equilibrium point everyone's always looked at is 6 months. So definitely a buyer's market there. So Jeff, I was pretty interested by this. So there's 2 ways that interest rates are established, right? There's one, the government, the rates set by the government on bonds, but then also the mortgage spread, right? And that is basically the desirability of the bond. So premium that people want over and above that the rates set by the Fed. And this is down to a 3-year low. So that's a very exciting thing. The spread had been really high historically over what the government set. So it's slashed really low. That's a very positive sign. Basically, that means that the perceived risk of us going into default on those bonds is lower than it had been in the past, that are more desirable. So that seems like a very good indicator that the market believes that there are some positive trends in us getting our arms around a wide variety of things, U.S. government debt, and just having control of spending and some other things like that. So that's a real positive sign for your low. And then there's also been quite a bit of news. I think for the first time, Powell came out and in many ways said that he believes that the tariffs are not causing inflation. He was really digging in on that, despite the data saying otherwise. So there's a lot of positive news, and the perception of rate reductions for the remainder of the year are the most optimistic that they've been in some time. The bond market is saying that. So I think very exciting news for real estate investors, as well as our company in general, because we rates do impact how often we're able to transact. So a lot of positive news in the rate environment. What else are you hearing in that space as far as rates go, Jeff?
Yeah, I just see this and I think it's two things. One, I don't know if you remember about a couple of years ago, we had our other Stephen Curtis on here talking about how the spread was the highest I think it had been. I don't know if it ever, but it was the highest it had been in a really long time. And so that was kind of frustrating, right? So you have it's not mortgage rates aren't translating to the yield. So the spread dropping is great news for everybody on the phone here. And like you said, it's an indicator of strength of the bonds, but it's also an indicator of I think rates are probably going to start dropping, right? That's like to your point. That's what Powell said. Everyone's kind of, I think everyone's kind of agreed, and so they're kind of baking into that into the price that rates are probably going to go down.
Yeah, and the other thing is job market is staying. Unemployment rates are really low, so that's the two big things, right? The Fed has a two-tier mandate, right? They need to keep inflation low. Target used to be 2%. Maybe they punted on that. Now they made it 2.5%. I'm not sure, but it's definitely somewhere in that 2 to 2.5% target. And then secondly, they have to keep unemployment very low. And we have very low unemployment at the moment. It's been that way for some time. And then secondly, we seem to have inflation under control despite the tariffs, which is, if that continues, that's great news. And then I do think rates will inevitably come down over time. One other quick reminder is that every 10 years, the Fed chair is selected. And that is coming up, I think, either later this year or early next year. I can't remember, but it is within the next like 9 months or year for sure. And my guess is someone will be put in who is more probably prone to reduce rates. So if that happens, that's really good for the real estate market. May not be good in other categories. I'm not here to say it's not going to impact something else, but if you're a real estate investor, lower rates can definitely help you
You can bet on it.
All right.
This will be the next Fed chair.
You can bet.
I know. So I saw this slide. I'll read it and then just give a little commentary. So mortgage rates are falling amid Fed commentary and market expectations of a September rate cut, creating a late summer buying window. Investors should look into rate locking with rates at a 10-month low at 6.55. And this is the part that matters. A home buyer with a $3,000 monthly budget can now buy $20,000 more of home than they could earlier in the summer. So as rates drop, it will open up buyers. So if you're for the folks on the phone, if you're a real estate investor, that means you'll have more potential buyers for your flips. And it also means you might make some more money on cash flow. So those are both good things. The thing to look out for, I don't know if you agree or not. I don't know if we're at that point yet, but when rates drop, what happens? Everyone decides they want to be a real estate investor because they want to make those cash flow. And so when that happens, a lot of those deals that we saw last night that got sold for very little money out of pocket, that number starts creeping up because there's competition for those deals. So it's while rates being lower are good in a lot of ways, if you're a real estate investor, if you start seeing deals with low money out of pocket, I'd start gobbling them up because if rates keep dropping, I think those days are going to end pretty soon.
Sure. Yeah, I think to your point, we did the data whenever rates were super low and it was a lot easier to get cash flow. And the average out of pocket for that last year was, I think, 45,000. Right now, it's less than half of that on average. So that is a massive difference. And really the evaluation for buy and hold investors, the simple way to evaluate is cash flow, right? But that's too simple. It's really not looking at the whole picture, because if you're out of pocket 45K to make 400, that's not nearly as good as being out of pocket 15K to make 200, right? ROI, it's a little bit, it's not super complex, but it is a little bit more complex for people than just looking at the cash flow in and of itself. I actually was talking with a gentleman last night who at our deal nights, who was talking about, well, I really like to buy for cash because I make a lot more cash flow. And I'm like, well, that's true. You do make more cash flow, but what's your ROI, right? You're out of pocket 200,000 to buy a house, and then you're making, after everything, you're paying your taxes, insurance, et cetera. Maybe you're making $1,000, but you could be making 200 and then you're out of pocket like $5,000. Like the ROI is so profoundly different that you can't just look at cash flow. That's taking it to an extreme, obviously, but the same holds true if you're looking at the low rate, high rate environment. So my point was really this, Jeff, and I appreciate you course correcting me, is that it's a real sweet spot now because if you're able to get these properties now, whenever the out of pocket is incredibly low, you can always refi at a later date when rates come down. And then you're crushing the cash flow and your out of pocket is still super small. Once we get to the point where rates are lower again, we may be seeing those 45K days out of pocket again. You can't get into anything for less than that.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to bring up something about what you said just now about that guy that said he wants to pay cash for real estate. First off, you never pay cash for real estate. That's dead equity. And in the description you gave, do you realize that guy could buy 40 houses
Crazy.
of one? He could have bought 40 houses. He'd be retired, multimillionaire, done. But he's going to pay cash for the property and only buy one. He shot himself in the foot.
Yeah. I mean, if you think it does just take it to the extreme, you go down to the end of the rainbow. Let's just say you hold it for 30 years. Every 5 years, you do a cash out refi, something like that, which, by the way, everybody, it's tax free, which is fantastic. You can take 20, 25, 30, 40K, depending on appreciation, out every 4 or 5 years. And that's just money in your pocket with no taxes. It's amazing. And then at the end of the rainbow, you own 40 houses, right? If they're each worth 200 grand, you have 8 million that you can sell those properties for, right? Or you got your one property and you got 200,000. Like that is so profoundly different at the end of the rainbow that it's hard to even comprehend. So yes, leverage. You're right, Steve. It should be the biggest no brainer that you have.
Yeah, and you missed one point, Wade.
Uh-oh.
It is this. Those houses are going to double in value in 30 years.
That's true.
He's not going to have $8 million. He's going to have $16 million worth of real estate paid in full.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I totally left the appreciation out. And I also failed to mention that you get massive tax advantages that entire time too, that you can even use against your W-2 income. So yeah, it's an absolute win. This next, oh, Jeff, did you finish this one? Was there any other data you wanted to cover on this slide? I'm sorry. Did I cut you off there? Okay.
That was it.
Okay. So one of the reasons we say is really, you got to look at real estate geographically, right? You can't look at national real estate trends. You have to really look at, definitely state by state. Local. More local, right? Local is very, very crucial. So one of the big reasons that we feel, and I think Steve definitely feels the same because we've talked about it in the past, that Texas is such an excellent investment opportunity is the simple supply and demand numbers, right? A lot of people are moving to the state, tons of people. So if you look at this, Texas captured 29 of the top 100 most moved to zip codes. Let's think about that. 50 states in the union, 1/3 of the most heavily moved to zip codes are in the state of Texas. That's a pretty incredible stat. What do you guys think about that?
The quality of lifestyle for the dollar spent in Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio is so doggone high. We've got museums, we've got all the arts, we've got jobs, all over the place. People want to be here. They want to move their companies here. There's just so many, but the quality of lifestyle, I think Houston has the most restaurants of any city in the United States, something like that. And they aren't good, they're great. I mean, the quality of lifestyle in Texas is extremely high. And I think that draws people as much as anything else.
Yeah, the quality of life per the dollar. That's the thing. It's per dollar spent because you got no state income tax. If you look where people are moving from, what's the common thread?
Yes.
They all have massive state income tax, right? And really, their property taxes aren't significantly better. So we're already overtaxed nationally, without question, right? But if you exacerbate that with a huge state income tax, it just becomes really problematic. And then home prices, which are your biggest expense, no matter how you slice it, are they're just much more expensive. We'll show that in the affordability index at the end. But to your point, Steve, with all these amenities, you have cities like Houston and Dallas that are not even in the top, they're definitely top 5, 6, 7 in amenities, but then they're outside the top 20 in cost, which is pretty.
There's a couple things I hadn't seen this until earlier today, so it made me feel good because I feel like we hype Texas up a lot because we're here. Obviously, we think very highly of it, but we are not the only ones, right? This is data, 100%. There's no getting around it. People are coming here in massive numbers, so our hype is warranted. Two, I know during COVID, the California to Texas migration was a big deal. It was a big news story. And I'd heard people trying to recently say, "Oh, they're moving back. People are ready to come here." I don't think that's the case because this is 2025 data, right? This is fresh. This is the last 8 months. So the trains is still moving east from California, which is great. I did think it was pretty funny. I just was looking at this map. If you look at like North Dakota and Wyoming, they are negative 291 people. They got it down to the person. Like a couple families moved out of North Dakota, and there you go. They're in the negative. It's kind of funny.
California speaks volumes for people being fed up with that 50% tax. I'll tell you a story real quick. A lady calls me from California. She wants to invest in Houston. She breaks into tears. She made $2 million that year. Her taxes, $1.1 million.
Oh,
By the time she paid income tax, federal tax, state tax, all of her taxes combined, she was an accountant. All of her taxes combined, 1.1 million, more than half.
That doesn't even add, consumption tax because you pay sales tax, and a lot of the sales taxes over there are a lot higher than they are here too. That's before consumption tax, right? Which is pretty significant when you think about it. Like every time you go into a restaurant or buy clothes or whatever, it's 8.5. I think many
Yeah,
areas
that's
way
true.
up to 15 on consumption tax. So that's brutal. Anyway, so that if you think about that, what does that do? Whenever you have a lot of people moving to a state and you just can't build enough properties, that means home prices are going to continue to go up. So that's you have people moving out of the state. You would think that home prices would come down. The unfortunate thing for some of these states, especially California or some of the others, is that they're overregulated. So they're just not building nearly enough homes. We'll show that in a bit. I remember for a long time, there were more homes being built in just the city of Houston and in Dallas, just the cities, than the state of California. So that's why we're able to keep prices down, is we're able to build enough homes because of not being overregulated. So that's a real big success story if you want to invest, for sure. All right. Kind of cover the migration. What do you guys see on this slide? I don't know if you had a chance to deep dive this one yet, Jeff, but
no, I haven't deep dived it, but I mean, it's just kind of more of the same, right? Like we were talking about, reporting 300 U.S. cities, Kenny, Richardson, Frisco, Denton, Allen. So that sounds a lot like North Texas is still really strong up there. Those are all North Texas cities, right?
aren't those all north of Dallas too? Is Denton north of Dallas or no? I know that.
I think they're all north of Dallas.
I think they are too. I think they're all north of Dallas.
I think. I'm not an expert up there, but I'm pretty sure they're all north of Dallas.
Yeah. Fort Worth and Austin also top performing list. Yeah. So this is not net migration, to be clear. This is using 17 housing and economic indicators, including market trends and local economic viability. And I will say, Dallas, I don't have any examples of it at the moment, but the number of corporate headquarters moving into that's an outstanding white collar, like corporate headquarters city. And they're just moving in there in droves. So a lot of real strong drives, which are going to drive up the prices. And that's one of the reasons, Houston is more of a blue collar city. Honestly, it's a little bit easier to be a landlord in Houston for a wide variety of reasons. But, those blue collar jobs don't drive up home prices like the jobs moving into Dallas and into Austin, right? Very white collar tech jobs. That's the difference.
I was looking at the other cities that are on this list that aren't in Texas. All of them but one are in. If you look at that previous slide, they are all deep blue, meaning like not politically on the map, right? So like North Carolina was plus 82,000. They were actually second in the migration chart.
Yeah.
And Arizona was positive. Tennessee was I think fourth or fifth.
Yeah.
The only outlier is Irvine. I don't know what's going on there. That must be just a great place to live, but everything else is doing the net positive migration states.
Yeah, net positive migration. Yeah, so the to your point, migration is aligning with these economic and housing indicators, right? Like people are
Correct.
moving to the places where their financial situation is best, which makes a lot of sense. So this is very interesting. We're talking a little bit earlier about the housing trends. So I'll give a little synopsis. Then I definitely want to ask Steve about this. But so Texas issued 78,104 single-family permits, marking the highest number amongst all states. So if you look at this by major metros, Houston 25,000, Dallas 22,000. Next highest is 13,000, almost half of Houston. Almost half of Houston.
That's down. We're down 8% year over year.
We are down. Now, that is an interesting thing. Whenever rates go up, without question, the national home builders are going to be a little bit more cautious. That's logical, right? Because we've seen it is not as easy to sell homes at the moment because of where rates are. If we get a rate reduction, because we really haven't seen home price drops despite super high rates, I hate to say super high rates compared to where they were 3 or 4 years ago. Not super high rates historically, but people have a recency bias. But look at this. That is why if the smart people who say I could build anywhere, right? You're talking to these national home builders, they could choose to build anywhere. And they're building in these two major metros because of all the people moving there and good economic trends. Yeah, that's a really interesting number for sure.
I'll tell you, Phoenix, I'm surprised Phoenix is only 13.9. That's shocking. But I guess, yeah, it's such a great city. And I've got friends that are investing there and they are kicking butt. Just massive rates of return.
Buy and hold investors
I guess it's a smaller city than I think.
Yeah, it is. It is significantly smaller at the moment than Houston and Dallas. But if you think about it, I mean, I don't know exactly where it is on population. Maybe one of us can Google that real quick or check. I can pop it in. But I don't, it's nowhere near Dallas or Houston in population size. I know that. But my guess is that may be the highest number of building permits whenever you consider the population size.
Yeah, you're right. They're only 1.7 million.
Yeah, that's significantly smaller than
less than half the size of us.
Yeah, less than half.
That
And Dallas
is a big number. That is a big number. 13.9.
Look, I just Googled the 30 largest metro areas, right? So not just the cities, but the metro areas. Dallas is fourth, Houston's fifth with 7.5 and basically 7 million people. Phoenix is 10th with like 4.9. So they're significantly smaller, but they're still a top 10 market.
Yeah, still top 10 market. And to your point, that actually isn't right because it doesn't sound like they're half the size of Houston quite, with including the major metro, because that kind of gets sliced up real weird. It's like, Houston has more within Houston's limits, but Dallas is chopped up with so many different things. Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, all these other things. So it's Dallas is definitely a lot more chopped up. So you got to look at the entire area. Okay, interesting stats there. So I was actually listening. I don't know if you guys ever listened to Housing Wire, their podcast, but there was evidently some this Zero Hedge came out with the statistic that 41% of all mortgages in America were ARM loans, which is not even close to being true. Like it's so far off. I don't know how they came up with that statistic, but Anyway, housing wire was shooting holes in it because that number is actually very, very low. No, historically low, and also very low compared to other countries. A lot of other countries have a lot more arms. We have a very low arm percentage, but that kind of ties in with this that we've been thinking for a while as rates go up or the housing market slows a little bit, there's going to be a lot of delinquencies, but we're not seeing that. And I do believe there's a few reasons why. One, overall, most people, even though rates are up, most people aren't giving up their low rates, right? So their mortgage payments are still pretty low. There's not a ton of sales. That's why we have the situation we're in. But maybe even more importantly, whenever we came out with these new qualified mortgage laws, mortgages are so different. Like back in the day, you could do negative amortization arms whenever the market, which basically meant that every month your balance would go up. That's not allowed anymore. And then maybe even more importantly, if somebody does an arm, people have to qualify based on the higher rate, the highest rate it could adjust to. That also was not a requirement back in the day. There were government, owner occupied loans where you could state your income, state your assets. You can't do that anymore. You have to have proven ability to pay. It can be in the form of bank statements, but you still have to see the money flowing through. Back in the day, you could do stated income loan, and there are no income loans today, but you have to have a property that cash flows. Can't be your primary residence. So the game on how mortgages are financed is so drastically different. And I think that's why we're seeing stability in the numbers. And this guy was talking about how everybody keeps waiting on another, great financial crisis in the mortgage space. And because of the changes, it just seems very, very low probability because the rates, people are locked in on a 30-year rate on almost all of these. And people are usually going to pay their house before they pay anything else, right? They're going to pay that before they pay the cars. They're going to pay that before they pay the credit cards. They're going to keep their house more than anything. And we're just not in that bad of a financial spot where people can't do that. So I thought it was a very interesting article. And it kind of falls in line with this. What are you guys seeing on this chart or anything else on that topic?
I just think, ever since COVID, I would hear people from time to time talk about this doom and gloom foreclosure crisis that's coming around the corner. And I can never find any kind of like real good fundamental reason why that's the case. Like you said, people are underwriting much tighter than they used to back when things were really bad back in the GFC. So I think and even investors, like, you think, okay, a rental property, that's the first to go. Well, most people that get to the point where they're investors, they're financially responsible, right? You don't have a lot of folks that are doing investment deals that just don't take care of their business. So I don't know. Unless the economy goes in the tank anytime soon, I just don't see a reason for any kind of spike in massive delinquencies. I don't know about your opinion, Steve. Maybe you have a different one.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I agree with Wade. Wade said it so well, it's hard to follow up. But the only thing that I do know is the credit card debt for the average family is massive right
Yes.
now. And Discover is writing off more delinquency than ever, than even in 2008, 9, and 10. So there are some bad things going on, but I don't think I just don't see how that's going to translate into foreclosures.
Yeah. I think the rates are so low on people's houses, they know that they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep that 3% because it's incredibly valuable, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get it again. Let's say I file bankruptcy, I lick my wounds, come back and buy a house in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. You're not going to get a 3%. The odds of that are very, very low. You're just probably never going to get that again. So I think people are going to fight tooth and nail to keep that. Now, to your point, there could be some bankruptcies on credit cards, maybe even cars, definitely credit cards, because those are all adjustable rates. And as the rates have gone up, people that, even if they didn't spend a lot more on their credit cards, their payment went through the roof just because the rates have gone up because they're all floating, right? They're all floating. So, yeah, I do think that there are definitely fissures and holes in the market. I just think the dynamics around the mortgages are different. Yeah. All right. This next slide. This is really, I want to give David some credit. We've not seen a slide like this in a while, and I think it's pretty darn interesting.
Yeah,
Um, Walk through this one, Steve, because you're working with a lot of remodelers. So tell us about this.
well, if you there are now 128,187 residential remodelers versus 77,000 home builders nationwide. That's a trip. I'd love to know how they got this information because I bet you money that's low as far as the residential remodelers. I bet there's more than that. Um,
Right.
they just don't get reported, you know. Residential remodelers outnumber residential builders by 65%. And, you know, this comes down to something funny. People just don't take care of their homes. They live and they beat them up. They live like crap. You know, the exterior looks nice because the homeowners association makes them keep it nice. But when you go into people's houses, it's just awful. I don't see how they live in that. So there's massive opportunity because of that neglect, because of that deferred maintenance for residential remodelers to go in, remodel a house, and flip it. I just think and it's so much cheaper than building roads, building utilities, and starting a subdivision. It's just the barrier to entry is so low for residential remodelers that there's going to always be more, I would suggest, but I bet there's 150,000 remodelers, not just 128. And it may even be higher than that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you that I don't. I think the new home builders, because there's permits that are filed and everything. That's an undeniable number. That number is probably accurate. I
Yeah,
would say that residential remodelers, because there is, like, people often do not file permits, right? They just do
right.
the sit inside the house without doing it. I'm guessing this is to do with permits is probably how they get this data. So I agree with you. The number on the remodelers is probably very low. I think the number on builders, because you can't get away without permitting that job. There's no way in hell,
Right.
is probably dead on. But what is still interesting is that even with those numbers being off, I'm sure that they were also off in 2002 and 2007, but they were actually lower back then. So you see the market shifting so much because it's harder to get the ability to build a new home, especially in other parts of the country. And it is a hell of a lot easier to be able to remodel them whenever they're already there. So I think that's going to be an ongoing trend, and it's a good way to get into real estate because it's not as difficult and or expensive to do either.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about this real quick if you guys haven't had a chance to look at it, but it is an interesting trend. I will say in my own portfolio, the older tenants have been often very great. Like there's less instability and things like that. And it does seem like a lot of older people are moving more towards renting rather than buying. They like that locational flexibility, the freedom to move around. They don't have to worry about repairs and things of that sort. They don't have to put a ton of money down to buy a home. Just a lot of great things. And I think that this is a real good shift because there was a long time where almost everybody, as an older person, they really wanted to own their own home. And this trend is making it really good for landlords. I think that in my portfolio, as I understand it, we're seeing an increase in that as well. That's a small sample size, but and they make, I think you have a lot less issues, a lot less delinquency in that particular category as well. What does this data say to you guys?
I have two
America's
things.
getting older.
What's
Huh?
that? Well, well, I was going to ask. Um, so it makes sense. I guess as we build like newer type communities where you have the amenities and it's nice and you can kind of have like aged people living together. That's attractive. But the only thing like the dark side of me was thinking about. I wonder if this is because Steve, you talk about, and I've heard you say it before, how, and I don't know the numbers exactly, but just the lack of people that have money to retire towards the end of their life. And I
Yeah.
wonder if this is folks that are getting older that just have to cash out. Like they have, values have gone up and they just need to cash out some of their equity, sell their home so they can have liquid and live. And and choose to rent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if that's part of it.
Jeff, I think you're dead on. I think that's exactly what's happening because the only asset that they truly have is their home and maybe 400 grand in an IRA. They can't retire on 400 grand. So they got to sell their home, go rent something, and live off of that money. I think you're dead on.
That's a that's something that I hadn't really considered. I thought it may be more of a desire. This article led me in that direction. But that's a very good observation that there are probably a lot of people that don't have a choice. Like that's most of their financial well-being or slash net worth is in their primary residence. If you're running out of money, maybe you do a reverse mortgage, possibly, but or maybe you just sell and rent and get that cash, and that's how you live for the remaining time. That's a good point. I covered a couple of these things. We're getting later on. I think. Act,
I was left.
I think what really we got like 3 minutes. I'd love to go over this affordability index. You guys, let's pop over there. We talked about rates a little bit earlier. Rates are down. So everyone on the call knows we are at a low for the year overall for mortgage rates, which is exciting. Um, what are you guys seeing on the affordability index? What jumps out at you?
Let's see.
Well, the San Antonio, there, I mean, it's there every time, right? We always talk about it, but you look at Houston, $65,000 annual, San Antonio, $65,000 annual, but it's going to cost you $90,000 more in Houston to buy a house. So I know we talked about it earlier a long time ago, but just kind of circle back to the point. San Antonio, cost versus income, it's a bargain right now, especially when you consider the size of the city, the amenities. Like Steve said, he loves going down there, like it's a fun place to hang out. And that's what I look at when I see this chart.
Yeah, all I see is text, and I get it. They pulled all the Texas numbers,
Yeah, we pulled Texas. Yeah.
put them in one area, but look at how many of them are in Texas. And this answers the question earlier about why are people moving here? It's just higher quality of lifestyle, lower cost. Um, it's crazy.
Yeah, and that affordability in Plano and Dallas is a very interesting statistic because it's like only Dallas proper that is at that 52% number. You come to these other markets, and man, it's even more attractive than Houston as a whole. And that's a big portion of the overall market there. Dallas
Yeah.
proper is big, but not.
Irving's nice, right?
I mean, yeah, you got Irving, Plano, Arlington, Fort Worth, like that.
Garland, Texas, right? Yeah, it's DFW.
Yeah, yeah. That's very interesting.
I know
Anyway,
I know if I lived in Lubbock, I'd be buying every house I could get my hands on.
yeah, that's a pretty good ratio right there too. Um,
That's
the
crazy.
Lubbock, that is a very attractive number, right? Yeah. All right. So David, we are wrapping up. I think we have two things to cover. Um, one, we want to make sure everybody knows how to contact Steve. So why don't you cover that, Steve?
Sure. Anybody that's interested in finding out about Total Wealth Academy and the mentoring that we have for real estate investors, go to totalwealthacademy.com and we've got a free sample class that you can click on. You can watch it live in Houston or Dallas, or you can watch it online if you're not in one of those areas, or you can call the office 855-576-7325, and someone will answer some questions and can set you up for the free sample class.
Excellent. And if you guys want to come out to Deal Nights one night or attend it online, there Steve and his team are having a lot more members who are not in Houston or Dallas because they see like this California lady that Steve was talking with. If you want to invest in Texas because of these incredible metrics we've been covering, you can certainly join up Total Wealth Academy and have access to fantastic deals in the state of Texas. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, let me say one other thing, Wade. If
Sure.
you'd like to come to the deal night, use the phone number. Call that phone number and say, I'd like to come to one of the deal nights, and they'll set you up.
Perfect. Perfect. David, we do have a giveaway that we do. Do you have a winner?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Bill Thrift is going to be our winner for this month's webinar prize.
We know
That's
Bill.
a great name, Bill Thrift.
We've worked with Bill. Congratulations, Bill.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Bill.
Yeah. So in closing, Steve, as always, fantastic to have you here as a guest. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And really appreciate everybody joining. And if you end up watching this on, a lot of people watch it after the fact on our YouTube. But if you would like to join live, so you have the ability to get half off your next processing fee on a Catalyst transaction, definitely keep an eye out for the invite so you can attend it live. That's a great reason to do it. All right. Thanks.